So, how do you choose which character to use for a cosplay competition? This question plagued me for over a month. And when I found out that I got into a cosplay competition, I knew that I needed to figure out what character I was going to be doing and quickly. Here are some of the characters that I ruled out and the reasons why. The first of which was Rengoku. Though I love Rengoku and me and Rengoku go together real bad, I just felt like his canon outfit was not something that I could use to showcase a lot of different skills, and I did not want to make those pants. The second character that I ruled out for a similar reason was Suguru Geto. I love Suguru Geto much like I love Rengoku, but I had already made Geto's outfit a few different times and I felt like it wouldn't challenge or push me to make something that I haven't already made and showcase skills that I haven't used before. I knew that I didn't want to gender blend a male character, so I wanted to look more towards female characters. So when I was looking at female characters, one of my first thoughts was Mira Jane from Fairy Tail. I mean, Mira Jane is an icon. She has so many different outfits, but I was having a hard time picking one. I wanted an outfit that I felt like represented things that I loved, things that I liked, and challenged me to showcase skills that I've kind of been putting off on learning and pushing myself towards actually having. I wanted an outfit that had a corset in it. I wanted something with drama and details, and that I could really bring myself into while also staying true to the character. And when I looked around for that month, I finally found a design that I felt like spoke to me. It had the corseting details, it had the drama, it had all of these different little intricate pieces in it that I could really showcase to a judge. And it was different than anything I'd ever done before. So, this is the story of how I made Sunset Dragon's Masquerade Umbreon for my very first cosplay competition.
Okay, so I plan out all my cosplays about the same way with my iPad and a dream. So to start with, I typically am either drawing out the outfit myself or I'm staring at a bunch of reference pictures for a really long time to then draw it out. In this case, Sunset Dragon had already drawn this out. They actually even on their Patreon have a reference sheet with fabric recommendations and some extra details. I won't be sharing that reference sheet since it is behind a paywall, but if you wanted to know, for some of their designs, they do put reference sheets kind of on their Patreon, and their Patreon's super affordable in my opinion. So I joined their Patreon, I got the reference sheet and everything like that, and I started looking at this cosplay and I broke it down into sections, and I'm even going to show you the layers that I put it in, my really bad drawings and all that sort of stuff, because I think it's crucial to the process. So the first thing that I do, which would be layer 2 here, is I start with what I think is the hardest part. So I drew out what looked like the bodice shape to me. Now, we'll talk about later on in the corset video specifically why this was the wrong way for me to do this, but this is the way I started it off with, and I'm taking you through my process. So the things that I could immediately see was that there were seam lines at like this princess area, and then obviously there's a seam over there towards the end. I figured it mirrored that on the back, and I was thinking about, I looked at the bust line shape and what would be happening kind of there in the middle. So this is where I kind of started with for the top part. The next thing that I tried to sketch out was a general shape of the skirt. So drawing over top of pictures just helps me to try to visualize like what that shape would look like or how I should make it look. Because when you look at this, at least when I look at this, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of art and everything like that, right? But I can't discern what's going on. I know that it's multiple pieces, but I don't know where piece 1 starts and piece 2 ends. So I have to go through and like sketch it out, and it's important to me to be able to do so. So I kind of sketched out, okay, I chose to do it as an open front skirt, so that way it kept that same shape that was drawn there, but also so that I could make sure that I had enough space for the little like secondary skirt, which is what I kind of drew in layer 4, is that skirt on top of the other skirt, and kind of put the two skirts together. So my initial thought was, okay, the corset is one piece. get my hair. The corset is one piece, the skirt is one piece, the overskirt is a third piece. So already right now, in my mind, I've broken this cosplay up into at least 3 pieces. After I kind of sketched those out, I looked at layer 4, which was going to be the tights. These were tights that clearly had seam lines on the front, and then they have this like gold detailing. I didn't end up adding the gold detailing to mine to begin with, and that was just because for a couple different reasons, which we'll talk more about in the tights video. But this is what my general sketch out and shape was, as well as I knew that for me, I wanted to build some sort of compression shapewear element into the top part of the skirt, or in the top part of the tights, excuse me, because I didn't want to have to put on a pair of shorts and then put on the tights and all that sort of stuff. I kind of wanted to just build them in together. So I knew once I got like to the top part of the tights, I was going to make them out of like a solid, more compression type fabric, which again, we'll talk about more in the tights video itself. And one of the other things that I kind of went through and sketched out and looked at were different versions of that middle part of the bodice. So like on the original drawing, obviously you can see the different phases of the moon, right? But the phases of the moon are a bit obscured by the hand placement and everything. So I knew that I needed to figure out how I wanted to do the moons, which moons I wanted to include and incorporate, how I wanted them to go, and everything like that. So those were the main pieces that I sketched out when I was first looking at the cosplay. The other things that I kind of noticed while looking at this cosplay were that the corset had at least 5 panels. It had the deep V in the front, and it had to be strong enough to hold up all of those moves. These and these, I knew I wanted to make all of these out of foam with fabric that covered them, because my idea was that I was going to use the same fabric for all of these things, as well as for this, and maybe even this. Like originally my plan was to use the same stretchy vinyl fabric over pieces of EVA foam, so that way there was continuity in the gold. If you've ever tried to make something with gold, you will know that all gold is not created equal, okay? You'll buy something that's gold from one place, and that gold is not the same as the other gold. You'll buy gold from this place, which is not the same as a third place, and every shade of gold is just slightly different. There's more like warm gold, there's more cold tone golds, there's like orangey golds, there's like more golden steely ones. There's a lot of different types of gold, okay? And I knew going into this that the different amounts of gold was gonna stress me out. I knew that I was going to need to be able to try to ensure continuity, and the easiest way to do that in my mind at the time was to just cover them all in fabric. We will talk more about whether that did or did not come to pass later on, but I give you a spoiler alert, it didn't. It just didn't. It didn't come to pass, but that's okay. So that was the initial plan. Another thing that I knew was going to take me a lot of time was the skirt. You can't see the back of the skirt right now because, like I said, that reference is behind a paywall, and I don't want to put it out there if it's behind a paywall. But essentially this, like all of this, hold on, gotta switch layers. All of this is continued on the back. The back of the skirt is absolutely gorgeous, but it's covered in all of these stars. And I knew that I had one of 2 options when it came to dealing with the stars. One option was to do what was recommended, which was to use heat transfer vinyl to iron onto the stars. I had a little bit of worry about that because if you use the wrong fabric and you heat it up trying to put heat transfer vinyl in it, you're gonna melt your fabric and you're gonna have a bad time. The other option that was given on the reference sheet that Sunset Dragon made was to use embroidery. I have never embroidered. Prior to this endeavor, I had never embroidered. I did start embroidering, but I also knew that as a beginner, I was not going to be able to embroider 100 stars of different varying sizes, shapes, all that sort of stuff. I knew that wasn't going to happen. So I was definitely going to go the heat transfer vinyl route. The sleeves, these sleeves, I truly thought that these sleeves were some of the most beautiful things I had seen drawn. The drama, all of this. These sleeves are my favorite thing that I made for this entire cosplay. I'm just gonna tell you that right now. They're my favorite thing that I made for this entire cosplay, but they were a labor of love, because to me, when I look at the sleeves, to me, there's so much drama and flounce and like bounce to them that I wanted to make sure that there was all of that represented physically. And I am not a seamstress. Spoiler alert, I'm not a seamstress. I'm just a person with a sewing machine who likes to sew, as most cosplayers are. But I knew that I really wanted to try to nail these sleeves. And originally, and I'll talk more about it in the sleeve video, but originally I was going to do this as a like fairy sleeve that I had seen a creator make for like a client that they had. It does have a high-low element to it, but the difference between what that creator did and what I ended up doing was the amount of volume. With the fairy sleeves that they had made, there was not as much drama or as much flounce and flair to it, whereas that was really important to me to keep, because like, look at it, look at all of it. So needless to say, I knew that I was gonna have to like do that. I knew that it was gonna have to be something else. The gloves, I was terrified of making gloves. I'd never made a pair of gloves before, but as you can see, the gloves are a component to the outfit. It gives that elegant look and everything like that. I knew I wanted to make my own gloves instead of buying gloves. I did not want to buy gloves. I wanted to make as many pieces of this cosplay myself as I could. And it wasn't a matter of just like, oh, I want more points in this, that, and the third. I wanted to challenge myself. You probably heard me earlier say that the reason I chose this design was because it had so many elements to it of things that I've been wanting to learn how to do, but haven't had the opportunity to, and haven't challenged myself to. And I wanted to challenge myself, so I needed to make some gloves. I was terrified, but I knew that if I used a stretchy fabric and I traced my hand, I'd get something that looked like a glove, and then I could adjust it from there. So, the gloves we talked about, the mask. This mask was one of the things I was most excited to make. I loved paper mache as a kid. I've always loved masquerade. Okay, I'm a Phantom of the Opera girly. I have always loved masquerades and things of the like. I am always looking for an excuse to put on a masquerade outfit, okay? I am, sue me, I'm just a girl. I've made pants before, for a couple of different cosplays that I have. I have cowboy cosplays that I've made pants for and things like that, but I never made a pair of tights, but I assumed if I could make pants, I could make tights. So there are a couple of things else that I want to say before I wrap up this video. This whole series is me talking about Masquerade Umbreon, which I affectionately called Scumbrion, because who wants to continue saying Masquerade Umbreon constantly? But when I was going through and making Scumbrion, it was a lot of work. I worked on this cosplay for, I think I started in July, all the way up until the day I put it on stage for the first time. And so I worked on this cosplay for 8 months. Oh wow, I worked on this cosplay for 8 months. That's the longest time I've ever worked on anything that I've ever made. Usually I'm making things in a quick turnaround time. At least I think it's quick. About 2 to 3 months is usually the time I take to make a cosplay. And usually when I'm making a cosplay in 2 to 3 months, I'm also making other cosplays alongside them, because I usually make my cosplays for con that I go to with my bestie. I am a type of person who might be a perfectionist. I know, who amongst us isn't, right? I struggle so hard with not just being perfect, with not just achieving immediately. I have this warped sense of confidence in myself that if I see something and I try hard enough, that I could do it. It's why I started making wigs. It's why I started cosplaying to begin with. I got so tired of not being able to have things in my size, or that looked like I wanted them to look, or that were as fun and whimsical and great as other people. I love dressing up. Who doesn't love dressing up? And it was so frustrating to me to not be able to do that, to not be able to dress up, to not be able to do the things that other people were able to. So it caused me to start taking on bigger and bigger projects. And each year that I have been sewing, I just take on a bigger and a bigger project. So while Scumbrion didn't turn out perfectly, which it never was going to, nothing I've ever sewn was going to turn out perfectly. And while there are still a lot of things for me to learn and to fix and to adjust to, I am happy with Scumbrion. I am happy with how she turned out, especially for my skill level. And I told myself when I entered the cosplay contest that the win was not winning. It wasn't being able to stand on the stage and accept the award and get the money and everybody clap for me. That was never going to be the win. For me, the win was making something that looked like the picture and getting back on stage, because it's been so long since I've been on a stage. This might have been my first cosplay competition, but it wasn't my first time performing. I was a guard girl for many years. I marched independently. I taught. I have always loved performing arts. I have a flair for the dramatics, as one may have it, and I missed being on the stage. It's been so long since I've been on a stage. And I told myself that no matter what, I was a winner as long as I made the outfit, as long as I got to the stage, as long as I tried. I didn't give up on myself. And there were times that I wanted to give up. There were times where I was so tired and I didn't believe that I had the skill to do it. There were times where I looked at my partner and I was like, I can't do this. I don't have to do this. I don't have to stress myself out about this. I could just quit. I have free will. And even when I was there, I was telling my husband and my bestie, I was like, I quit. I don't have to do it. I don't have to show up to prejudging. I don't have to go. I was terrified. I was nervous. I was scared out of my mind, but I did it. I did it anyway. I did this hard thing because it matters. It matters to do a hard thing. It matters to show up. And I won. I did. I won. I might not have been standing up there on the stage. I might not have had the award or the money in my hand, but that wasn't the win. The win was going with something that looked like the outfit, was something that I was proud that I had made. And I won because I showed up and I proved to myself that I am capable and that I can do hard things. And it's easy to forget that about yourself, but I am capable of doing really hard things, and I did it. Yay! So yeah, I am gonna break this up into a couple of different videos. One, because I'm long-winded, but two, because there was a lot that went into it. I have so many notes. Because there was a lot that went into it, and I want to make sure that I go through and talk it out. So this is the first video. This is the planning, choosing a character, and all that sort of stuff video. The next video is going to be all about the skirt and the tights and what I did with the shoes. And then we're going to have another video that is the mask, the wig, and the hair crown. Then we're going to have another video that is for the sleeves and the gloves. The corset is going to get its own video because me and that corset had beef till the very day that I walked across that stage. A lot of which is probably just lack of knowing stuff, and we'll talk about it later. I'm not going to get into it now because this is already getting long. So yeah, and then I'll have a final video that talks about my experience at BlurredCon, how I felt competing day of, and everything like that. So yeah, that is it. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey where I talk to you about my very first competition piece, Masquerade Umbreon by Sunset Dragon, also affectionately known as Scumbrion around these parts. Stay tuned for what comes next. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you are notified every time that I post, which I will be doing a lot more. I am taking myself serious and I am doing this. So yeah, I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.